My wife ditched me. 2 weeks after our wedding for her ex, now she wants me to be her backup plan. Hard pass. Hey everyone. Before we get into today's story, I could really use your help. The channel's been losing some traction lately, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you great stories. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much, and now let's get into it. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. Never thought I'd be one of those guys posting about their marriage problems on Reddit, but life's got a sense of humor, I guess. Everything that's happened is such a mess that I just need to get it off my chest. Maybe writing it down will help me make sense of it all. Fair warning, this is going to be a long one. I'm a 30-year-old guy. I was married to Emma, she's 28, for literally 2 weeks before everything went straight to hell. 2 weeks. We still had unopened wedding gifts sitting in our living room when she decided to blow up our entire life. I still can't believe this is real. Anyway, some background. I'm a structural engineer, mainly work on skyscrapers and big commercial projects. Been doing it for about 8 years now, and honestly, I love it. The hours can get crazy, but it's rewarding work. Emma, I don't even know what to call her now, was a wildlife veterinarian. That's actually how we met, kind of a funny story. One of my construction sites had an injured hawk. My site manager called the local wildlife center, and that's where Emma came in. She showed up in muddy boots and messy hair, completely out of place among all the guys in hard hats, but the way she handled that hawk blew me away. She was confident, calm, and gentle. She knew exactly what she was doing. We started talking while she worked on the bird, and I found out she'd just moved to the city. I offered to show her around sometime, smooth, I know, and to my surprise, she said yes. That led to dinner. Dinner turned into more dates. Before I knew it, we'd been together for 3 years. Everything seemed perfect. Sure, we had the usual arguments, stupid stuff like whose turn it was to do laundry or me working too late, but nothing major. She supported my insane work schedule, especially when I was buried in big projects, and I supported her obsession with saving every injured animal within a 50-mile radius. Our apartment basically became a mini animal hospital at one point. We even had a 3-legged raccoon living in our guest bathroom for a week, but that's a story for another time. We wanted the same things: kids down the road, a house in the suburbs, dogs, obviously. We even shared the same quirks, like both hating cilantro and binging true crime documentaries. Looking back now, maybe things were a little too perfect, if that makes any sense. The wedding was everything she'd dreamed of, a fancy vineyard ceremony that cost me an arm and a leg. Took me a year to save up for it, but seeing her happy made it worth it. Her dad, this tough ex-military guy covered in tattoos, actually started crying as he walked her down the aisle. I never thought I'd see that man cry, but there he was, tears streaming down his face. My college buddies all came, even my best friend Kyle, who's been working on a massive project in Dubai for the past 2 years. He actually warned me about a few red flags he'd noticed with Emma, but I brushed him off like an idiot. Should have listened, but you know how it is. Love makes you blind. The ceremony was beautiful. Emma had spent months planning every detail, the flowers, the music, even the wine. She ordered it from a vineyard we'd visited on vacation. She hired a calligrapher to handwrite every place card, which cost a fortune. My mom kept saying she'd never seen a more beautiful wedding, but now I wonder if she was just being polite. The reception was wild. The band kept everyone dancing all night, and Emma's cousins from Australia taught us some insane drinking game that left half the wedding party hungover the next day. I remember looking at Emma during our first dance, thinking how lucky I was, how this was the start of our perfect life together. Our honeymoon was in Bali. Took me 6 months of overtime and every saved penny to make it happen, but it was worth it. Emma had always dreamed of going there. When we got back, everything seemed great for exactly 14 days. We were still in that honeymoon phase, calling each other husband and wife just because we could, wearing our rings like they were treasures. Emma even talked about maybe trying for a baby next year. And then, everything fell apart. 2 weeks after we got back, I started noticing Emma acting off, like a completely different person. Looking back, there were so many red flags I ignored. First, she was always on her phone. Before the wedding, she used to give me crap for checking work emails at dinner, but suddenly she was the one glued to her screen, texting nonstop. Whenever I walked into the room, she'd flip her phone over or switch apps. My dumbass thought she was planning some kind of surprise for me or something. Then she started staying late at the wildlife center. Sure, she'd always had the occasional late night. Emergencies happened, but this was different. She'd say she had to monitor an injured eagle overnight or take care of a fox, but her stories started falling apart. One night she said she was staying late for a hurt fox, but I saw on the center's Instagram that they'd released that fox earlier that morning. Still, I didn't want to believe what was right in front of me. Work was crazy for me at that time, too. I was handling a huge project, a 50-story hospital expansion downtown that was giving me all kinds of structural headaches. The worst part? It was for Ryan's hospital. They were expanding their trauma center, and my firm landed the contract. That's probably how Olivia found out he was back. She must have seen the plans at our place one night when she was hanging out with Emma. Now, let me tell you about Olivia. She's 32, twice divorced before 30, and always has a new boyfriend. She thrives on drama. Her Instagram bio literally says, "If you can't handle me at my worst." You get the picture. She's a receptionist at the wildlife center where Emma worked, and the two of them got close fast. I never liked her, but I kept my mouth shut. Something about her always rubbed me the wrong way, but I couldn't quite figure out what. Later, I found out from a friend, James, that Olivia had actually tried to get my number back when I first came to the center for the hawk situation. Apparently she was interested, but I was already into Emma. I guess she never got over that. I'd overhear her and Emma whispering and giggling in the kitchen, but they'd go silent the second I walked in. Once I heard Olivia say, "You deserve to be happy. You can't help how you feel." I should have paid attention, but I ignored it. Looking back, Olivia was basically feeding Emma poison every single day. Then came the morning everything fell apart. I was in my home office at around 5 a.m., reviewing foundation plans. I'd been up all night running on coffee when Emma came in. She looked like she hadn't slept either, still in her pajamas even though it was nearly 11. She sat down on the couch and started crying. Not soft crying, but that uncontrollable, ugly crying where you can barely make out the words. I thought something terrible had happened. Someone died, maybe. But no. Turns out Olivia had convinced her to meet up with her ex, Ryan, a few days earlier. Apparently, they'd been texting for weeks before that. And Ryan wasn't just any ex. He was her college sweetheart, the guy she dated for 4 years before he left to join Doctors Without Borders in Africa. Now he was back in town, working as some big-shot trauma surgeon at the local hospital. And this guy had the nerve to tell Emma he'd made a huge mistake leaving her, and that he still had feelings for her. And instead of telling him to screw off like any decent person would, Emma was sitting there, crying, saying she was confused and needed to figure things out. She actually tried to explain to me how Olivia had helped her realize she had unresolved feelings she needed to explore. According to her, she owed it to herself to find out whether she still had feelings for Ryan before fully committing to our marriage. I just stared at her thinking, we're already married. The thank you cards from our wedding weren't even mailed yet. And you want to know the most messed up part? She tried to make it sound like she was doing me a favor. She said something like, "I need to be sure about us so we don't end up divorced in 5 years when we have kids." I just sat there staring at her, probably looking like an idiot with my mouth hanging open. Looking back, Olivia's whole plan was painfully obvious. She was the one who accidentally mentioned to Emma that Ryan was back in town working at the hospital. Then she started casually bringing him up in conversation, showing Emma his social media posts about being back from Africa. Classic manipulation. But Emma fell for it completely. Here's where things got real. Instead of doing what she probably expected, begging her to stay, crying, promising to be a better husband or whatever, I started laughing. Not happy laughter. That kind of bitter, broken laugh you let out when something is so absurd it almost feels funny. Emma just looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Then I did something that even surprised me. I opened my laptop, typed "best divorce lawyers in our city" into Google, and started making calls right there in front of her. Emma completely freaked out. "What are you doing?" I said I needed time to think, not that I wanted a divorce. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "No, what you need is to get the hell out of my house." Not my proudest moment, but I'd been running on maybe 2 hours of sleep, and my whole life was crumbling in real time. She started crying harder, saying I was being unfair, that I didn't understand how complicated this was for her. Then she hit me with this gem. Ryan was my first love. I need to know if there's still something there. I'll always wonder what if I don't explore this. That's when I lost it. I told her, "You know what's not complicated? Marriage vows. You either meant them or you didn't, and clearly you didn't." Then she tried to flip it on me. Said I was being controlling and unsupportive for not letting her figure out her feelings. She told me Olivia said that any man who truly loved her would give her the space to figure things out. By the way, screw Olivia, seriously. I pulled up our wedding video on my phone. Had to scroll past hundreds of honeymoon pictures to find it. I made Emma watch the part where she promised to forsake all others. Then I asked her if she'd been lying then or lying now. She got quiet after that. Then she changed tactics. She said maybe couples counseling would help, that we could work through it together. I told her the only thing I needed to work through was finding a good lawyer. Then she dropped the bomb that showed exactly what kind of person she really is. She said, Ryan's just coming off a 36-hour shift at the hospital. He said I could come stay with him while we figure this out. Yeah, she already had her bags packed in her car. Turns out she'd been planning this for days. She'd already moved some of her stuff to his place while I was working my ass off on that big project. She was literally planning her exit strategy with her ex. Cool, cool, cool. I wish I could say I handled it calmly, but nope. I started going through our wedding gifts, most of them still unopened, and made 2 piles, stuff she's not getting and stuff she can have. Real mature, I know. Then I called my buddy Kyle, the one in Dubai. He got on the first flight home. True bro move. Emma tried to say I was being dramatic for getting him involved. I reminded her that she was the one who dragged her ex and her toxic best friend into our marriage, so maybe she should sit this one out. The next few hours were a blur. Emma kept bouncing between crying, trying to explain herself, and getting angry at me for not being understanding. Understanding of what exactly? That my wife was getting ready to cheat on me with her ex and wanted my permission? The whole time, she kept saying crap like, I still love you, and this doesn't mean I don't care about you, and my personal favorite, you'll always be special to me. Like she was breaking up with a high school boyfriend, not her husband of 2 weeks. Finally, I told her she had 2 choices. Either cut all contact with Ryan immediately, and maybe we'd try to work through this, or leave right now and we're done forever. She actually said, why does it have to be so black and white? That's when I knew it was over. I told her to get out and not come back. She tried to hug me before leaving, the sheer audacity, and I just walked away. The sound of her car driving off is still burned into my head. I watched her pull away from what was supposed to be our dream house, probably heading straight to Ryan's place, while our wedding cards were still sitting on the kitchen counter. That night, I got blackout drunk with Kyle on our back patio after he landed. I deleted all my social media because I couldn't stand seeing her face. Called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. The next morning, hungover and numb, I was sitting on the couch with Kyle trying to figure out what the hell to do next when someone started pounding on my front door. Hard, like cop knocking hard. I thought maybe Emma had come back to grab more of her stuff, but nope. It was her dad, Mike. Now, let me tell you about Mike. The guy's about 6'4", covered in military tattoos, looks like he could snap me in half. Ex-Marine, now runs a successful security company. He'd always been cool with me, but seeing him standing there that morning had me terrified. I honestly expected him to punch me. Couldn't have blamed him either. His daughter probably told him some twisted version of the story, painting me as the bad guy. Instead, this big, intimidating guy just looked at me and said, my daughter's a damn idiot. Got any coffee? Turns out Emma had called her mom, crying, saying I was being unreasonable and cruel for not supporting her need to explore things with Ryan. Her mom bought every word. Those two have always been close. But Mike wasn't having it. So there we were, me, Kyle, and Mike, sitting in my kitchen, drinking coffee spiked with Jack Daniels. Mike started telling us how he never liked Ryan even back in college. Said something about him always seemed off. Then he dropped a bomb. Ryan had actually cheated on Emma back in college, before the whole Doctors Without Borders thing. Emma never knew. A friend had told Mike, but he and her mom decided not to tell her because she was too fragile at the time. So now I'm sitting there, realizing my wife left me for a guy who had cheated on her years ago, and she didn't even know it. You can't make this stuff up. Mike was actually the one who recommended a divorce lawyer. Turns out he'd used the same guy once for a business dispute. He even offered to have some of his security guys talk to Ryan, but I turned that down. Tempting, though. The next few days were chaos. I had to call my boss and explain why I needed time off from the skyscraper project. He was surprisingly understanding. Turns out his first wife had done something similar. He gave me 2 weeks of paid leave and told me the project would still be there when I got back. The worst part was dealing with all the shared stuff. The house looked like a wedding had exploded. Gifts everywhere, cards, photos. I found our marriage certificate in a pile of mail and just broke down. Emma's younger brother, James, he works at my firm as a junior engineer, came by to pick up some of her things. Poor kid was stuck in the middle. He told me Emma was staying at Ryan's place and acting like a completely different person. Said she was posting all these cringe quotes on Instagram about following your heart and finding your true path. The family dynamic got messy fast. Emma's mom was fully Team Emma, going on about how I needed to give her space to figure things out, saying marriage was about understanding and patience. Meanwhile, Mike and James were on my side, which caused huge fights in their house. Then Olivia started running her mouth at the wildlife center, telling everyone Emma left me because I was emotionally unavailable and worked too much. Some of Emma's co-workers, people I thought were our friends, started unfollowing me on social media. Real mature. But then karma kicked in. Remember that massive project I was managing? The hospital expansion? Ryan's hospital. I called my boss, explained everything, and he immediately reassigned the project to a different manager to avoid a personal conflict. Ryan apparently threw a fit when he found out the change would delay his project. The financial mess was brutal too. We just combined our bank accounts after the wedding. I had to freeze everything and start untangling our finances. Thank God we hadn't bought a house yet. We were still saving up for a down payment. The only real asset we had was my condo, the one I'd bought before meeting her. During all this, Emma tried calling me a few times. She left these long, rambling voicemails about how she still cared about me and hoped we could be friends someday. Like, yeah, sure, let me pencil that in right after I finish burning all our wedding photos. Her dad kept me updated on what was happening on their end. Apparently, Emma and Ryan were playing the happy couple all over town, fancy restaurants, cute photos, acting like she hadn't just blown up her marriage for this nonsense. The worst part? I found out they'd been texting before our wedding. James discovered it by accident. He was helping Emma set up her new work iPad, and it synced with her old messages through the family cloud account. That's when he saw the texts from Ryan going back months. Some were even from the week before our wedding. My own brother-in-law had to be the one to tell me. That's when I decided to let go and focus on myself. I threw myself back into work. Remember that skyscraper project I was working on? Turned out all those late nights at the office while Emma was figuring out her feelings actually paid off. My design ended up saving the client millions in foundation costs. My boss was so impressed he fast-tracked my promotion to senior project lead. Meanwhile, Emma's whole finding herself fantasy started falling apart. James, her brother, kept me in the loop since we still worked together. Apparently, living with Ryan wasn't the romantic dream she imagined. The guy's a total workaholic, ironic given her complaints about my hours. Leaves his dirty scrubs everywhere and still acts like a college frat boy with his doctor buddies. Then Katie from the Wildlife Center told me what had really been going on. Turns out, Olivia had been playing both sides the whole time. She'd been telling Emma that Ryan was her true love while simultaneously fishing for information about him. The whole time she was pushing Emma to leave me, she was laying the groundwork to go after Ryan herself. Real piece of work. She wanted Emma to feel the pain she felt when I chose Emma instead of her. Emma caught them having lunch together a few times. And when she finally confronted Olivia about it, that snake actually said, "Well, you were married when you started talking to Ryan, so what's the difference?" Karma. Absolute chef's kiss. Then something interesting happened. Katie, one of the senior vets at the Wildlife Center, reached out to me. She'd been Emma's mentor when she first started there, and she was disgusted by how everything went down. Katie had seen firsthand how much overtime I put in to pay for the wedding and couldn't stand hearing Emma tell everyone I was controlling and worked too much. Katie basically became my eyes and ears at the center. She sent me a screenshot of Emma crying in the break room because Ryan had forgotten their 1-month anniversary. Like, you left your husband for this dude and you're crying about a 1-month anniversary? Make it make sense. That was when things really turned. James told me I needed to hear something. He'd seen Emma at their parents' house when he went to pick up some stuff. Said she looked completely different from the sister he knew, wearing all this fancy designer stuff apparently because Ryan makes good money, but she looked tired. Sad. She tried to hug me. What the hell? I just stepped back and asked her how her journey of self-discovery was going. She started crying, saying she missed me, missed our life together, that Ryan wasn't who she thought he was. You know what I did? I laughed. Told her I had a meeting to get to, which I didn't, and walked away. The old me would have tried to comfort her, maybe even considered taking her back. The new me? I went to the gym, grabbed a protein shake, and crushed my deadlift PR that night. Then I got a call from a headhunter about a massive project in Singapore. They'd heard about my foundation design solutions and wanted me to lead their new eco-friendly skyscraper development. 2-year contract. 7 figures. Full relocation package. I took it without hesitation. When the news got around, because people talk, Emma showed up at my office. She was hysterical, saying I couldn't leave, that she was confused about her feelings, that maybe she'd made a mistake. I just looked at her and said, "That sounds like a you problem," and went back to my blueprints. The look on her face was priceless. Apparently, one of Ryan's coworkers saw Emma crying in my office and told him about it. Ryan, being the insecure man-child he is, completely lost it. Started blowing up Emma's phone, demanding to know why she was talking to me. Mind you, this is the same dude who had no problem texting my wife before our wedding. But sure, bro, go off. Here's where it gets good, though. While Ryan's having his little meltdown about Emma talking to me, guess who was blowing up his phone? Yep, Olivia. Turns out they'd been having lunch together pretty regularly. And by lunch, I mean meeting up in his office when Emma was at work. How do I know this? Steve, the project manager who took over the hospital contract after I stepped away, saw them together constantly during site meetings. Being a decent guy, he kept me in the loop, sent me photos of them looking pretty cozy during what were supposed to be professional consultations. The same girl who helped Emma blow up our marriage was making moves on her new man. You literally can't make this stuff up. And how do I know all this? Because my firm was still handling the hospital project, just with a different team. Steve saw Ryan and Olivia together all the time during site meetings. He felt guilty about the whole situation, especially after seeing how it was affecting the project timeline, so he started keeping me updated. Emma found out about it during some fancy dinner she'd planned for Ryan's birthday. She'd spent a whole week planning it, cooked his favorite food, which, by the way, she never cooked for me, bought him some expensive watch. Then, right in the middle of dinner, Olivia drunk texts Ryan saying she misses their lunch meetings and hopes Emma doesn't check his second phone. Second phone? This dude had a whole-ass second phone for texting Olivia. Real classy. Emma apparently lost it, stormed out of their apartment at like 11 p.m. Tried calling her mom, but she was on a cruise. Called her dad, but he basically told her, "You made your bed, lie in it." Called her brother James, but he was working late at our firm, on my team now. Got him promoted last week. Guess who she ended up calling? Me. Midnight. Crying about how Ryan was just like all other men, how she'd made a huge mistake, how she never should have left. I let it go to voicemail. Sent that message straight to my lawyer. The next day, pure chaos at the Wildlife Center. Emma showed up to work and found Olivia acting like nothing happened. They had this massive screaming match in the break room. Katie, bless her, had the presence of mind to record the whole thing on her phone. She sent it to me right after, knowing I'd need it for the divorce proceedings. The best part? In the middle of their fight, Ryan shows up trying to explain, saying he and Olivia were just friends and that Emma was overreacting. Then Olivia, this absolute snake, looks Emma dead in the eyes and says, She looked Emma dead in the eyes and said, "At least I waited until he was single, unlike some people." The Wildlife Center actually had to call security. Emma and Olivia both got written up and escorted out. It was beautiful chaos, the kind that feels almost cinematic when you realize the universe is tying up loose ends for you. At that point, it felt like every corner of my life had its own correspondent feeding me updates. James kept me informed from the family side. Mike from her parents' side. Steve from the hospital project. And Katie from the Wildlife Center. Everyone could see what a mess Emma had made, and nobody was letting her rewrite the story. Meanwhile, I was in my office finalizing the Singapore contract, ready to piece out of this entire situation. The company even offered to bring Kyle along, gave him a senior engineering position because, honestly, he's brilliant when he's not babysitting my drunk ass. Emma tried her version of damage control. Sent this long, emotional email about how she sees things clearly now and realizes what she threw away. Said leaving me was the biggest mistake of her life. Said Ryan was just a fantasy, and reality had hit her hard. My response was simple. Cool story. Please direct all future communication to my lawyer. Then she tried getting her family involved. Her mom had just come back from that cruise and showed up at my place unannounced, going on about how young people make mistakes and true love deserves second chances. Mike, Emma's dad, found out and was furious. He came to get her himself, but not before telling me, "I'm still coming to Singapore to visit once you're settled." Absolute legend. James told me later that Emma had moved back in with her parents. Ryan apparently was already dating some nurse from pediatrics. Olivia got fired from the Wildlife Center for creating a hostile work environment. Took them long enough. My firm decided to throw a huge farewell party for me that Friday. They rented out this fancy rooftop bar downtown, invited everyone from the company and a few clients. James helped plan it, but specifically didn't tell his family, for obvious reasons. Somehow, though, Emma found out. I'm 90% sure Olivia told her. She's still friends with one of our receptionists. The party was great at first. All my work friends were there. Some of my college buddies showed up too. I'd gotten my Singapore visa approved that morning, my new apartment was ready, and I was in the best shape of my life. Thank you, post-breakup gym time. Then, around 10 p.m., guess who showed up? Emma, but wait, it gets better. She showed up wearing the dress. The one from our first date, the one I told her, made me fall in love with her. She'd kept it all these years and apparently thought this was her big movie moment. She timed it perfectly, showing up right as people were doing speeches, probably thinking it'd be some grand romantic gesture. Instead, security stopped her at the door because she wasn't on the list. I didn't even notice at first. I was talking to a really cool architect from the Singapore firm. Then James ran up to me out of breath. "Dude, Emma's here." She's making a scene. I went out to the lobby and there she was, crying, mascara streaked, begging security to let her in. When she saw me, she started in with this whole dramatic monologue about how she made a horrible mistake, how Ryan meant nothing, how she wanted to come to Singapore with me. Mind you, this was happening in front of half my coworkers, who had all stepped out to watch the show. She was clearly drunk, that same dress hanging awkwardly on her because she'd lost weight from all the stress of her own choices. Then she dropped the bomb. She'd actually bought a ticket to Singapore. Like a real plane ticket. Her plan was to show up at my new place next week and win me back. She thought it was romantic. I thought it was full-on stalker behavior. I just looked at her and said, "You need help. Professional help." Then I turned around and went back inside to enjoy my party. But of course, she wasn't done. She tried to follow me in and security had to grab her. That's when she started screaming about how I never really loved her, because if I did, I'd forgive her one mistake. Kyle stepped in at that point. He looked at her and said, "One mistake? You mean texting your ex before the wedding? Or moving in with him 2 weeks after?" The whole room went quiet. Emma went dead still, then started crying harder, didn't even think that was possible. She kept mumbling about how she was confused and Ryan manipulated her. And then, as if fate had a sense of humor, Ryan walked by. Yep, Ryan, out on the street below with the pediatric nurse he's now dating. He glanced up, saw Emma melting down in her old dress, looked super uncomfortable, and just kept walking. Didn't even acknowledge her. The look on Emma's face when she saw them together, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Security finally convinced her to leave, but not before she tried to hand me a letter she'd written. I didn't take it. She dropped it on the floor. Kyle picked it up later that night when we were drunk, and we read it together. It was pages of her rewriting our entire relationship, painting herself as the victim. After that, the party actually got better. Everyone was buying me drinks, telling me I dodged a bullet. The architect from Singapore, let's call her Sarah because irony's fun, gave me her number and said she'd show me around when I got there. Later, I heard that Emma went to Ryan's place after leaving the party. The nurse answered the door. That did not go well. Last I heard, Emma's in therapy now. Good for her, I guess. Too little, too late. A couple days later, it was time to head to the airport. I had everything packed, said goodbye to my parents, got my place ready for the renters. Felt good about everything. Then Emma pulled her final stunt. Quick backstory. I had a 6 a.m. flight to Singapore, connection in Dubai, where Kyle lives. My parents and James were driving me to the airport. Simple plan, right? Emma had other ideas. We got to the airport around 4 a.m., and guess who's waiting at the check-in counter? Emma, with luggage. This girl really thought she was about to pull some romantic comedy airport scene nonsense. She'd bought a ticket to Dubai, not even Singapore, just Dubai, because that's all she could afford. I guess her plan was to follow me mid-flight and win me back somewhere over the Indian Ocean. The best part? She brought her dad, Mike, thinking he'd help her convince me. But Mike, absolute legend that he is, was actually there to stop her. He'd found out about her plan from James and came to drag her home if necessary. Emma sees me and starts her big rehearsed speech about how love means fighting for what matters and how she won't let me go without trying one last time. Meanwhile, Mike's standing behind her looking like he wants to disown her. Can't blame him. Then she pulls out this photo album. Our relationship, our wedding, everything. Must have spent days putting it together. She actually thought it would change my mind. Like a few old photos would erase all of this. I just walked around her to check in. She started crying again, saying she'd prove her love by following me to Singapore if she had to. That's when Mike finally stepped in. He grabbed her suitcase and said, "The only place you're following anyone is back home. You're embarrassing yourself, and more importantly, you're embarrassing me." Never seen Emma shut up so fast. And then, because life has perfect comedic timing, guess who was at the airport too? Sarah, the architect from Singapore. She was on my same flight, heading back after the project handover. She walked right up, gave me a big hug, and asked if I was ready for our dinner plans in Singapore next week. The look on Emma's face, priceless. She actually laughed through her tears, this broken, manic little sound, and said, "You're already dating? I thought what we had was special." I finally said what I'd wanted to for months. What we had was special. And you traded it for a fantasy with a guy who's already moved on to someone else. That's on you, not me. Mike practically had to drag her out of the airport. The last thing I heard was her crying about how I was being cruel for moving on. The irony of that, just wow. The flight itself was amazing. Got bumped to first class, had drinks with Sarah, talked about architecture and life. Turns out we have a lot in common. She's brilliant, driven, and most importantly, single. We're having dinner tomorrow. Landed in Singapore a few hours ago. My new place is insane. View of the whole skyline, private pool. Just got a text from Mike. Emma's finally agreed to get serious about therapy. She moved back home, quit her job at the wildlife center, too much drama with Olivia still hanging around, and is apparently working on herself. Good for her, I guess, Ryan. Last I heard, he's engaged to the nurse. 2 months in, but sure, what could possibly go wrong? Olivia's working at some sketchy private zoo now. Karma's funny like that. I'm standing here looking out over the Singapore skyline, and for the first time in a long time, I feel peace. Tomorrow I start work on the biggest project of my career. Next weekend I have a date with a gorgeous architect. My best friend, and Emma's brother, who's more like my brother now, joins me here soon. Sometimes the worst things that happen to you lead you exactly where you need to be. To everyone who followed this wild ride, thanks for the support. And to everyone who told me to hit the gym and focus on myself, you were right. And Emma, if you're somehow reading this because I know you still check my Reddit even though I made a throwaway, I honestly hope you figure your life out. But I won't be around to see it. Time to start my new one. Final edit, stop asking for Sarah's social media. Not happening. Edit 2, yes, I kept the photo album. I'm mailing it back to Emma's parents. Some memories aren't mine to keep. Edit 3. For everyone asking about prenups, yeah, learned that lesson the hard way. Already talked to a Singapore lawyer about protecting my assets going forward. Never making that mistake again. Final edit. This blew up. Thanks for the awards, but maybe donate to your local animal shelter instead. At least some good can come from this mess.